For anyone to see my work or understand it, I think it's really important to understand that I'm a painter. I came to glassblowing in a kind of circuitous route back in the late 90s when my paintings were increasingly about transparent forms and transparent objects. And many of these I was actually making myself. They began as plastic objects, and some of them began to incorporate elements of glass. So I had the crazy idea that not only was I painting these objects at a very large scale, these things were hand fashioned and sort of tabletop, but I was painting them on a monumental scale, 8, 9 feet across. And I thought, oh, I'd like to see these objects at this size, in 3 dimensions. We'll make them in glass. And so that's what started me really to realize the potentials of the medium, also the limitations of the material, and it quickly led me kind of down a rabbit hole of what the material's relationship to painting is. It's always amazing to me as a painter. Painting is like writing. It's completely abstract. There's no there, right? Like if you're sitting in a room and you're writing a novel or a screenplay, all you've got are these abstract symbols and a piece of paper. And fundamentally, that's the same in painting, right? I mean, you have the physicality of this goo, but you're alone. And all of your successes and frustrations are they're kind of a solitary experience. Glassblowing is entirely different. It's like playing music. You depend on and conjure it with the participation of other people, and that fundamental difference I'm addicted to, really. I find it incredibly energizing, and not just in terms of the immediate experience. I think that it has made lasting, it's made lasting artistic impact on how I think. And art's not made in a vacuum, and it requires community. And the great thing about glassblowing is that that community happens in real time, in a room, only that time. Like seeing a live performance. And glassblowing, in a way, reminds me of that. It's you have these physical objects which are, yeah, they're sculptural entities and they have their own internal energy. But really, what they are a visible and tactile record of that one-time experience. And there's something really, I don't know. Like if 3 people make something, which is the case here, I'm working with a couple of just phenomenal glass blowers. I mean, unbelievable, like unbelievable musicians, right? And there's just something that happens in that 90 minutes that it takes to make something sort of this big, that has intentionality, that really those 3 people really are the ones who understand what actually happened. And I find that really remarkable. It's given me a different sense of time, actually. There was a comment, actually, of a friend of mine who's a terrific sculptor, and he once was commenting on an exhibition, and these were sculptures. And the comment was, "Oh, yeah, this is what happens. This is so typical. This is when painters make sculpture." And it always stuck in my head because what he meant was that there was a lack of three-dimensionality, an in-the-round experience. I actually thought about that, and still do, as being a potential fertile ground for this confluence of 2 and 3 dimensions. But I'd say around 2005 or so, I became aware of how to make photographic decal imagery using high-fire ceramic toners. And that allowed me to inject imagery into this amorphous, swimming refracted light of glass. So those two things, 2 and 3 dimensions, are now sort of pulled together, at least in what I'm doing, trying to do. And then those in turn are going up on the wall as 3-dimensional objects, yet you see them as an image because they have images in them. The imagery comes from a lot of different places, you know. I think that I used to use the word story, and I think that's important. My paintings essentially are, if they don't tell stories directly, they have narrative undercurrents, and periodically my work has had more or less of that. So using the decal imagery, photographic imagery, or photographing my drawings and then turning that into glass imagery. The stories, because I'm seeing them episodically as physical objects, right now I will have 3 complete wall arrangements, and they are political and sociological in nature in terms of the narrative. This is much more of a direct storytelling than my paintings are, which tend to be more enigmatic as an image. You know, if I was going to actually extend an analogy of being a musician, but different recording studios, different ways that musicians relate to a space, and just the whole ambiance of time and place, you know, they all matter. And Corning it's entirely unique. The studio, which is a public studio, you know, has all kinds of folks who come through and are working. And, you know, that can, you know, in some situations, you know, it can be either kind of crazy or not crazy or what have you. It's really a very calm, it's controlled, and yet, the only way I can put this, it's artistically humane. It allows, there's an energy in the studio that really allows for your head to expand.